Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Session 3 webinar. Today, we're going to talk about how you can transform your already existing exam paper or assessment papers or test papers to EP. And at the end, we will also have a little walkthrough to personalize your lesson to really connect with your students and get their attention. Hello, I'm Angelina. I'm a French teacher. I taught to primary and secondary schools in Sydney, and I am now working at EP, helping teachers implement Education Perfect in their classes to really get students progressing in each stage of their learning cycle. And with us today, we have the wonderful Philippa, who will walk us through this amazing feature that is creating your own assessments or customizing your own assessments.
Thank you, Angelina. Yes, I'm Philippa, and like Angelina, I was a French teacher for many years here in New Zealand before joining the EP team. And here at EP, I oversee our languages product and the development of all of our languages content. And it's great to be here again, talking about how you can use our content development tools to really, as Angelina said, transform your paper assessments and also add those little personal touches to our EP lessons to support both the instruction and practice side of our learning cycle that we've talked about in the previous sessions. So thanks, Angelina. And shall I jump straight into the platform and let's get started?
Let's
Awesome. So I'll share my screen and hopefully in a couple of seconds, my screen will appear. So hopefully you can see that now. Now you can see I'm over in the library. So this is to get to the library, you go to our left-hand navigation and click on library here. Many of you will be familiar with the library area. I'm going to go into the My Content space. So you can see up above, we've got all of our EP content. Then we've got this My Content space, which is content that's completely private to you. So while you're in the creation process, nobody can see what you're working on. So you can go back in and it's fine. Students won't see it until you choose to actively share it. So to start with, we're going to look at creating assessment tasks. So you might have paper assessments that you want to convert to use on EP. And the benefits of doing that is the auto marking to save you time with the marking, and also that amazing data analysis, because all of your own created assessments will also be used alongside the data analysis tools that we looked at in the webinar that was about data analysis and exploring that further. So anything you create will have those tools working alongside it. So that's a huge benefit to doing your assessment online rather than on paper. Hopefully will save you a lot of time and also be able to really inform your teaching going forward. So I'm going to click on Create New, and I'm going to start, like I said, with creating an assessment. Now, we're not going to go into the full detail of how to do this because it will be here for a very long time, and we'd rather just show you how to get started with the little bits and pieces and the tips and tricks, and then you can go and have a play yourself. But if you do need a more in-depth session, please just reach out to your account manager and they'll be able to provide some more in-depth training with you if you would like that. But this is just showing you the kind of top level how to do it. So once we're in the new exam area, and it's called an exam, but it's really any kind of assessment that you want to do, you just first of all create a blank slide. You click on blank slide, and you can see down the left hand side we've got all of these different components that you can just drag into the question creation area. So this is like a blank canvas essentially here. So you can you'd start with a text box where you'd set the context for the question. You might have the question prompt. Essentially, you can put any kind of text by dragging over this text box and simply typing in it. So it could be, read this passage and answer the question that follows. That's a sort of very traditional reading comprehension style question, if you like. You can then format it with all the formatting tools up above, just like you would in a document. Then, so say, for example, you were doing a reading comprehension question in an assessment, there's a number of ways you can add in your reading stimulus. So you can either just continue to just write it here, or if you've got it in a document, you can copy and paste it directly into that text box. If you're creating the assessment from scratch and just thinking off the top of your head, just write it straight in. We're imagining most people would probably have it in a document first. If you've got it nicely formatted in the document and you might have some images or, it's in a particular text type, then you can actually just take a screenshot screenshot of the text in the document and grab and upload an image. So you just drag over this image icon and then you just upload the image to the platform. So then you've got the formatting really nicely done. I'll just get rid of that image icon there. But the simplest way is to just write it in that text box. So I'll just write a sentence as an example in French, and it's not a particularly exciting one, but just to give an example. Okay, excuse me, Angelina, if I've made any mistakes in my French there. And so then obviously if it was
good.
a longer reading passage, you could just keep typing and then you can pop in the question. So once again, you could just have it at the end of that text box. If you've uploaded an image, you can just add in another text box. You can add as many text boxes as you like. So the question might be, where did this person go during the weekend? Very simple question. Obviously, you can add all sorts of different question types. It can be more analysis style questions if you wanted a longer answer, or simple multi-choice or drag and drop answers. So I'm just going to make this into a really simple multi-choice question. So to do that, I just drag over the multi-choice component and I add in my options. So the correct option would be to the beach, but then you add in some distractors, to the shopping mall. And generally we tend to put 4 options, but really it's up to you how many options you want to do. And there you have a really simple multi-choice question, and you would have probably put a bit more detail into your reading text there, and you can just save it. Now you can see it took me a couple of minutes to do that. We've also got lots of different question types here that you can explore, and we won't have time to go into all of those in the session today, but you can have a play with them. They work in exactly the same way. You just drag over the question type into this canvas area. Some cool tips and tricks with this. First of all, if I was to rather have a listening question rather than a reading, instead of having the reading text here, all you would do in that case is drag over this audio icon, and you can either record your voice directly into the platform. So, pendant le week-end, je suis allée à la plage. Super easy to do that. Or if you've got the existing audio on your computer, once again, you can upload it. So that's how you could make a listening question. But you can also just do these same things with a simple vocabulary question. In your text box, you would have, what is the word for this? And then you'd have the options in the multi-choice. So it's really, the world is your oyster when it comes to creating questions. You can use these tools here to do whatever kind of question you'd like to have in your assessment. If you want to have a longer answer, we've got our long answer component, which you can drag over. And what that means is you would need to have the students writing a sentence answer for the question. The only thing to be aware of with long answers is that you would then need to go in and mark the question. So the platform won't mark those automatically. You would have to go in and give it a grade. But all of the multi-choice, drag and drop, fill in the gaps, they are all marked automatically, and they will directly lead to our analysis tools that we talked about in the previous session. So what I'm going to do now is, you can also give the question a name. So we'll just call it question 1. And then if we go back out, it will save it. We can just save it here. It's going to ask us to give our exam a name, so we'll just call it French assessment. You can obviously give it a more meaningful name. Okay, so another great tip that you can do with your assessment tasks is add analysis tags. And this helps to fuel that data that we were looking at yesterday, and it also helps to direct those recommended learning pathways. So if I click on add tag and put in here, for example, reading comprehension as the tag, the first thing this will do is, when I go to my data reports, it will generate columns to give me a breakdown of results. So I would see one column of analysis with the heading reading comprehension, and it would take all the questions that have got that analysis tag and put them into that category. And the same if I had listening comprehension or vocabulary or grammar or a topic. Might have several different topics within an assessment. The second thing I can do is click on add content, and I can add a recommended lesson. So for example, I might go into our intermediate languages course, find a lesson that might be relevant. So I'll choose this reading comprehension lesson. And then what that means is, if a student gets below a threshold, which you can choose in the assessment, then it will automatically assign them that practice. And that's what feeds those recommended tasks that we looked at in the analysis in the previous webinar. So I just go create tag, and then I can actually tag any other questions with that same tag, or I can create different tags for different questions. So that's a great trick to really help with that personalized learning and analysis that we've already talked about. So then I'm going to save it. I've got to give my assessment a name, so I'll just call it French year 10 French. Oh, I can't spell. French assessment. You can choose the time you want students to spend, and then you save it.
Now, like, you saved it. where can I find these assessments?
Great question. So if I go back out into the library and say I've gone and done some other things in EP, I might go into Discover, I've got into the tasks, and then if I go back to the library, then I should be able to find it in my content area. You can see Year 10 French assessment, there it is. I can open it back up and I can just click on the three dots up here and I can edit it again. So you can edit it over time. You don't have to do it all in one go.
Yeah, so you can jump out, jump in at any time, as long as you click.
Absolutely. Definitely click save. That's a good idea always. And the other really cool thing you could do is in this My Content area, no one else can see it. It's just you. If you wanted to collaborate on it, if you've got colleagues in your department and you want to collaborate, what you can do is move it into this My Schools content, but you just have to make sure you hide it so that students can't see. So I could add a top level folder and call it Year 10 French assessment and create that. And then what I can do is if I just go into here, I should be able to drag this over into this Year 10 French assessment folder. Then I can just right click on it and it's already hidden. So it's by default, it's hidden so students can't see it, which is great. And that means any of your colleagues will be able to find it in that folder and they can collaborate on it. I just recommend not all doing that at the same time because then you don't know who's saving what and you might find that things don't get saved. But as long as you kind of with your colleagues who's going to go in when and make sure no one else is working on it at the same time, then it should be fine. But it's a great way to share the workload, or you might create the whole assessment for one topic and share it like that, and then they might create it for another topic, and it's a really awesome way of collaborating.
I've noticed when I visited schools, departments would organize the assessments through year groups. So then because they would do the same assessment for the same cohort and they would divide the chores and not the chores, sorry, they would divide who creates the assessment and then review it as a team. And it was all nicely organized per year group, Year 10 assessment, Year 7. And the next year they could either copy the whole folder or reuse it simply with a new cohort.
Absolutely. And another great way of collaborating is if you want to work, like for example, if you work with, another school, for example, if you've got a sister school close by, and you want to share assessments, you can actually get a link. If I go preview, and I can just click in the three dots up here and go copy teacher link, and then you can actually share that with your partner school, and that will then make a copy of it. So you won't be collaborating on the same version, but that will create a copy that then they can use if they want to. So you might say maybe if you're in a small department and it's only you teaching your language, which I know is quite common, you could say, well, I'll do one practice exam and you do another one, let's swap. And that's an awesome way to share as well. And you can also share with our broader teacher community as well. You can right click and go share to public, and that actually shares it with all of the EP teachers in the world, essentially. So if you don't have to do that, but that's an option if you would like to. So that's a very quick overview of how you can create an assessment, and it's quite easy to do. You can just see you drag over those elements. But like I said, if you want to have a play with those tools, but need a bit more support, your EP account manager will be more than happy to provide that support for you and help walk you through that process. But I just thought it would be really cool when we're thinking about our learning cycle to have a quick look at how you can personalize some of those instruction elements and practice elements very quickly before we end the session. Here, I just showed another couple of ideas, first of all about instruction and then about practice as to what we can do with our content creation tools. So first of all, one thought is, we've talked a lot about instruction and personalizing the instruction. A really nice way you can personalize the instruction is just by adding in a little personal message or a personal video to your students. So you could go to one of our introduction lessons by going to our beginner content and then open it up. And then you just go add. So you click in the top right hand corner, you just go click on those three dots again, add to my content. You add it into your content folder, which we've already talked about when we were creating the assessment. It makes a copy of the lesson, so you're not editing our lesson. And then you can go in and essentially you can edit any of this. So you can personalize it for your students. You can take bits out, you can add bits in, you can just click on edit and it becomes an editable canvas. So that's the first thing you can do. You can just delete, add, simple, you just edit to your heart's content. It might be that we've introduced a word that you don't use or you don't teach, or you want to add something to the explanation. That's one option.
You know what I used to do? Sorry, I used to put my students' names in
Oh, that's such a great
So
example.
they could
Yes.
relate with
Yeah.
you had to change it every year, but it was really
That's really
effective.
cool. I like that idea. And that really personalizes it. And they'd love that.
Yes.
They love seeing their names there. And the other thing you can do, which I've seen teachers do, is just you could add in a slide at the top and say, just a blank slide. And you can make a video and just say, welcome to this lesson. I'm really excited to, we're going to be covering this topic, especially if you've got students working asynchronously. They'll love to see a little video of you personalizing it. To upload a video, you just simply drag over this video icon. You do have to have the video pre-recorded to do that. You won't be able to record straight in, and then you just upload it. So that's another example there. Another cool idea is you can add a link to like a class blog or a class word wall or something where you might have a brainstorm, even a Google Doc. You can add in a link to a Google Doc where people can be collaborating. And that probably links into talking about how you can personalize the practice a bit more. So in any of our practice lessons, you can go into a listening lesson or a reading lesson, or you can actually create your own lesson as well. And you can, let's find an example. So another way you can customize our practice lessons is by adding in all sorts of interactive elements into those. So for example, if you've got a lesson here, this is on, around town and activities in the community, you could just add in a Google Street View, and you can embed it. And so first of all, I've got to edit the lesson. So I go to the three dots and go add to my content. Once again, it makes the copy. And then you just add in a question or a slide. So I'm going to go down here and go add question. And then you can actually embed anything into an EP lesson, which is fantastic. So you just drag over this icon here and you just copy the embed link. So it could be a YouTube video about your town. So it's personalizing it. Could be a Google Street View map. It could be any kind of interactive element. And we can't use these links in our lessons due to copyright. And I think so it is over to you a bit to use this tool. But yeah, it's essentially anything with an embed code you can embed right into the lesson. And then you could have any kind of activity to go with that. It could be a comprehension question. It could be, write directions to get to this place. So here's an example, once we've used that embed code tool, of what it could look like in a lesson where you've got the map in the lesson. And then what you could do is have an activity following that. It could be a speaking activity, it could be a written activity, it could be a comprehension activity, but a really cool way to bring it alive a bit more and add those interactive elements. So that's another way of sort of making the practice more exciting, more real, and more authentic. And you can really embed anything out there that's going to be relevant to your students. Another cool idea for practicing writing is embedding a Google Doc where the whole class is writing together and practicing and sharing. So that could be an alternative, something you could add to our writing lesson. So hopefully that's given you a few ideas as to how you can actually customize and edit our content to further meet the needs of your students, but still keeping within the framework of assessment, instruction, and practice. So I hope that's been helpful. I'll hand back over to Angelina.
Thank you so much, Philippa, for all of this. This is amazing. I really like the last little features about how to embed content with Google View and how to create exercises with that. Thank you very much, everyone. If you have any question, please feel free to email support@educationperfect.com, or you can contact your account manager that will be more than happy to help you with any content creation or assessments creation.
Thanks so much, everyone, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.